What makes a hymn a great hymn? Theological integrity. That is, a good hymn actually says something. It's not just something that's fun to sing, but it has a depth of meaning, and that meaning is faithful to Scripture and faithful to Christian theology. But it also has spiritual reality. A good hymn touches on things that really matter. It addresses the issues we face, like fear, uncertainty, doubt, grief. It may be a vehicle to express our most profound sadness or our most profound joy. But a good hymn is real. Wholesomeness. Sidner, in your book, uses this term, wholesomeness, and that is to say, a good hymn is beneficial to us. It is spiritually and aesthetically, quote-unquote, nutritious. A good hymn feeds our souls, just as good nutritious food feeds our bodies. We all have heard about junk food and empty calories, right? If you eat that Little Debbie Star Crunch, I love Star Crunches, by the way. If you eat that Star Crunch, it's delicious, but you're getting calories, but you're getting what are called empty calories. It's going to make your blood sugar spike, and but you're not getting any nutrients from it, right? Well, there's a lot of junk songs out there too. There are songs that are enjoyable to listen to and sing, but they don't say anything, and they don't provide us with any spiritual or aesthetic nutrition. All right, this next one I had to make up a word. Congregationalness. That's totally not a word. I figured if St. Paul can make up words, I can make up words too. But a good hymn tune, and this is mostly about the tune, but it applies to the words too. But it's something that can be successfully sung by the congregation as a whole, where you've got all different ages represented. You've got all different ability levels represented. That last tune that we sang, y'all picked that right up. That's a very congregational tune. It didn't have a lot of weird intervals in it or big leaps. It didn't have lots of syncopation and stuff that made it tricky. Okay? It was something that we could all pick up and sing together. A lot of music for worship today is very complex in its structure and or in the rhythm. A lot of it is pitched really high so that only the pros up front singing into the microphones can pull it off. And the congregation, instead of being a worshiping congregation, becomes an audience, just like at a concert. The people up front do the singing. The audience might sway, they might kind of mumble sing along, but singing along isn't the same thing as singing together. And in worship, the people out here in the pews shouldn't be the audience. In worship, there's an audience of one. God is the audience. And we all are gathered together to worship God. We all are the ones that are on stage. This is not a stage. I'm not on a stage. This is a chancel. And the chancel is raised so that all the worshipers can see the people leading in worship so that we can all participate together. We are all performers, so to speak, in worship. And God is our audience. The hymns we choose for worship and the way we participate in worship can either support the idea of the congregation as a whole being the worshipers and God as the audience, or it can detract from it. You get out of worship what you put into it. And so I'm grateful for you here today who are attending online, attending here in person and online, because that tells me you want to be active participation in worship and not passive spectators. I only wish more people out there in our culture shared that desire. Plenty of people that are completely content to be religious spectators, to be spectators of religious entertainment. And next thing is beauty. Worship should be beautiful because God is beautiful. The worship space should be beautiful because God is beautiful. The art we use in music, including visual art, But other fine arts, including music and dance, should be beautiful because God is beautiful. There's an old maxim in Christianity that says, lex orandi, lex credendi. That means the law of prayer is the law of belief. In other words, the way we worship, the content of our worship, the things we say and the things we do in worship inform our faith more than anything else. More than Bible studies or Sunday school classes or theology classes or confirmation classes or anything like that. I know plenty of people for whom good preaching, or at least their definition of good preaching, is their only criterion for evaluating worship. They'll put up with all kinds of ridiculously bad art, bad music, bad architecture, as long as they get, quote-unquote, good preaching. Well, lex orandi, lex credendi. The law of prayer is the law of belief. Teaches us that if you think preaching is the only thing that matters in worship, you will become a very lopsided Christian. You will have a faith that is an intellectual faith. You may know a lot of facts about God, but I doubt if that faith will be integrated into the rest of your life. Because that message, that preaching, is not integrated into the rest of the liturgy. It either all works together or it all falls apart. The things we say as a congregation in worship matter as much as the things the preacher says from the pulpit. The things we sing together matter. Whether we value congregational singing or allow a passive entertainment model to take over matters. How we worship forms our concept of who we worship. What we as worshipers call beautiful says a lot to the watching world about who we call beautiful. All right, the next thing, sound craftsmanship. Some people put down lines that rhyme and think they've written a poem. That's not poetry. That's what we call doggerel. Rhyme is not what makes something a poem. In fact, poetry doesn't even have to rhyme. A good poem, and that includes a good hymn, because remember, a hymn is not a piece of music. A hymn is a poem. A good poem needs to be well put together. It should have a sort of density of meaning, having layers of meaning. It should use language in an evocative way. Imagery, simile, metaphor, and just the way the words sound when heard, and even the way they feel in the mouth when spoken or sung, all contribute to the craftsmanship of a good hymn. Here's a quote from the church music historian Percy Scholes. He said, "Time is the last appeal in matters of artistic taste and quality, and one has to wait for its verdict." During the Reformation period, for example, in the Lutheran churches, there were over 100,000 chorales written. Chorale is a Lutheran four-part harmonized hymn. Over 100,000 of them were written during the Reformation period. Now, how many of those do you think are still in hymnals? A couple hundred. A couple hundred. A tiny, tiny percentage. And so, I think Scholes is right. Time is the ultimate judge of what is good craftsmanship. Whether or not it lasts, whether or not it has the capacity to speak to generations beyond its own.